The arrivals hall at Miami International Airport buzzed with the familiar chaos of a Saturday afternoon, rolling suitcases rattling over tile, announcements echoing in both English and Spanish, families clustered behind the barrier with flowers and handmade signs. Palm trees swayed beyond the glass walls, sunlight pouring in like a promise. Rosa Alvarez stood near the front, hands folded over her purse, eyes fixed on the sliding doors. At 72, Rosa moved more slowly than she used to, but her posture was still straight, her hair neatly pinned back the way it had been for decades. She wore a pale blue dress and sensible shoes, the kind of outfit that said she valued comfort but still cared about looking presentable. Her face, lined by years of laughter and worry in equal measure, softened every time she glanced at the little girl holding her hand. "That's her," Rosa said for the third time in 5 minutes. "I know it." Lucia bounced on her heels. At 8 years old, everything felt like an event worth exploding over. "Abuela, you already said that." Rosa smiled and squeezed her great-granddaughter's fingers. "I know, Mija. I just miss her." Beside them, Rosa's son Daniel checked his phone again. He was in his 40s, broad-shouldered, wearing a polo shirt and khakis, the uniform of a man who liked things orderly. His wife, Marissa, stood slightly apart, scrolling through messages, her lips pressed thin in irritation. Marissa had insisted on coming. "She's family," she'd said when Rosa hesitated. "It would look strange if I wasn't there." Rosa hadn't argued. She rarely did anymore. The doors slid open again, releasing a fresh wave of travelers. And then Rosa saw her. Isabel stepped into the arrivals hall with a tired smile, dark hair pulled into a loose knot, a backpack slung over one shoulder. She looked thinner than when she'd left 6 months earlier, but her eyes lit up the moment she spotted them. "Abuela." Isabel called out. Rosa's heart leapt. She let go of Lucia's hand and hurried forward, ignoring the ache in her knees. They collided in a tight embrace, Rosa breathing in the familiar scent of her granddaughter, soap, sunscreen, and something uniquely hers. "You're home," Rosa murmured, pressing a kiss to Isabel's cheek. "You're finally home." "I am," Isabel said, her voice thick. "I missed you so much." Lucia wrapped her arms around Isabel's waist. "Did you bring me something from Brazil?" Isabel laughed. "Of course I did." For a brief moment, everything was perfect. Then 2 men stepped forward. "Isabel Alvarez?" one of them asked. They were dressed casually, but the badges clipped to their belts were unmistakable. Isabel froze. "Yes?" "Ma'am, we need you to come with us." Rosa's hand tightened around Isabel's arm. "Why?" The second agent spoke, his tone rehearsed. "There are some questions regarding financial activity linked to your passport." Daniel frowned. "This has to be a mistake." Marissa finally looked up from her phone. "What kind of questions?" "A few transactions flagged by Customs and Border Protection," the first agent said. "It shouldn't take long." Isabel's face drained of color. "I don't understand." "I was working. Nursing contracts. Everything's legal." Rosa stepped forward, placing herself slightly in front of her granddaughter. "She's a nurse," she said firmly. "She's been helping people. There's no reason." "Ma'am," the agent said gently but firmly, "we'll explain everything shortly. Please don't interfere." Isabel turned to Rosa, panic flickering in her eyes. "Abuela, I didn't do anything wrong." "I know," Rosa said without hesitation. "I know you didn't." Marissa suddenly cleared her throat. "Maybe it's just, you know. A quick security check." She forced a smile. "These things happen when you travel internationally." Rosa looked at her, something uneasy stirring in her chest. "Can I come with her?" Rosa asked. "No," the agent replied. "Family needs to stay here." Daniel hesitated. "How long will this take?" "Hard to say." Marissa shifted her purse higher on her shoulder. "Well, this is unfortunate timing. Lucia's already cranky, and I have a meeting call in an hour." Rosa stared at her. Your niece is being taken by federal agents. Marissa's lips tightened. I'm sure it'll be cleared up. She bent down and kissed Lucia on the head. Come on, sweetheart. Let's give them space. Wait, Rosa said sharply. Where are you going? Marissa didn't meet her eyes. Home. Someone has to take the child. Before Rosa could respond, Isabel was gently but firmly guided away. She looked back once, eyes wide, reaching out. Abuela. I'm here. Rosa called. I'm not going anywhere. The doors closed behind Isabel and the agents. Rosa stood there, heart pounding, the noise of the airport rushing back in like a wave. She turned to Daniel, searching his face for reassurance. This isn't right, she said. You know it isn't. Daniel rubbed his temple. Let's not panic. We'll call a lawyer if we have to. Marissa was already walking away, Lucia in tow. Marissa. Rosa snapped. Marissa paused, annoyance flashing across her face. What? You're not leaving, Rosa said. Not until we know what's happening. Marissa sighed dramatically. Rosa, please. You're overreacting. And then she turned and walked faster. Too fast. Rosa watched her go, a cold certainty settling in her bones. Something was very wrong. She sat on a metal bench near the arrivals hall, clutching her purse, staring at the floor until the patterns blurred. Memories began to surface, small things she'd brushed aside over the years. Marissa's sudden interest in investments. Her expensive handbags that didn't match Daniel's income. The way she'd insisted Isabel open new accounts for tax purposes when she'd taken the Brazil contract. Rosa's hands began to shake. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts, stopping at a name she hadn't dialed in nearly 15 years. Jack Morales. Retired. D.A. They'd met decades earlier through Rosa's late husband, back when Miami felt like a battleground between law enforcement and cartels trying to buy silence. Jack had always told Rosa the same thing. Trust your gut, he'd said. It's saved more lives than badges ever have. Rosa pressed call. The phone rang twice. Morales, a gravelly voice answered. Jack, Rosa said, her voice trembling but determined. It's Rosa Alvarez. I need your help. There was a pause. Then, tell me everything. As Rosa began to speak, she didn't yet know how deep the betrayal went, or how far she would be willing to go to protect her family. But she already knew one thing for certain. She was not going to sit quietly while her granddaughter took the fall for someone else's crimes. Jack listened without interrupting, the way he always had. Rosa could picture him clearly, gray hair cropped short, coffee going cold on a cluttered kitchen counter, eyes narrowing as patterns clicked into place. When did Marissa start handling Isabel's finances? He asked when Rosa finished. About a year ago, Rosa said. She said it was easier since Isabel was traveling. Daniel trusted her. I trusted her. Jack exhaled slowly. That's when the paper trail probably starts. What do I do? Rosa asked. They took Isabel like she's a criminal. You stay calm, Jack said. And you don't confront Marissa. Not yet. Rosa's jaw tightened. She ran, Jack. She didn't even look back. That tells me plenty, he replied. Listen carefully. I can't flash a badge anymore, but I still know how these people move. If Isabel's been flagged for laundering, there are accounts, shell companies, maybe offshore properties. Rosa's stomach sank. Marissa mentioned a quiet place in the Keys once. A retreat, she called it. There was a pause. Then Jack said, that's not nothing. 2 hours later, Rosa sat alone at a small cafe just outside the airport, untouched coffee cooling in front of her. Daniel had gone home with Lucia, rattled but still clinging to the idea that this was all a misunderstanding. Rosa hadn't corrected him. Not yet. Her phone buzzed. Jack, I pulled a few strings. Nothing official. Isabel's name is tied to 3 offshore accounts. Cayman Islands. Large transfers. Cartel level large. Rosa closed her eyes. Another message followed. Jack, the signatures look digital. Forged, most likely. Whoever did this knew what they were doing. Rosa's grief hardened into resolve. Not my granddaughter, she whispered. That evening, Rosa drove to Daniel and Marissa's house. Lights were on. Marissa's car sat in the driveway, trunk ajar. Rosa parked down the street and watched as Marissa rushed back and forth, dragging suitcases out, throwing them into the trunk with frantic speed. Running. Rosa lifted her phone and dialed Jack again. She's leaving, Rosa said. Now. Then we don't have time, Jack replied. Follow her, but don't let her see you. If she's smart, she's heading south. Rosa's hands trembled as she turned the key in the ignition. She followed at a careful distance as Marissa sped onto the highway, heading exactly where Rosa had feared. The Florida Keys. They drove through the night, neon signs and palm silhouettes blurring past. Marissa didn't stop until she reached a gated property tucked behind mangroves and white fencing, far from tourist eyes. Rosa parked several houses away and waited. Jack arrived an hour later in a battered pickup, moving stiffly but with purpose. Nice little hideout, he muttered, surveying the place. Too nice. They waited until the lights inside went dark. Then Jack moved. He still had contacts, old favors owed, friends who hadn't forgotten what he'd done for them. Within minutes, a local deputy they trusted arrived, followed by a federal agent Jack had mentored decades earlier. By dawn, the house was alive with motion. Inside, they found it all. Hidden safes. Burner phones. Ledgers. A laptop encrypted but poorly. Marissa had been arrogant, sloppy with time. Most damning of all were the documents tying every offshore account directly back to Isabel's name, complete with forged signatures and recorded calls where Marissa bragged about using her sweet, saintly niece as the perfect clean front. When Marissa was handcuffed on the sunlit patio, she screamed. This isn't fair, she shouted. She didn't even want the money. Rosa stepped forward, her voice steady as stone. No, she said. You wanted it. Marissa's eyes flicked to her, filled not with guilt, but hatred. Back in Miami, the evidence moved fast. Federal prosecutors descended. The accounts were frozen. The cartel connection, long suspected, never proven, finally snapped into focus. Isabel was released within 48 hours, charges dropped publicly and decisively. Rosa was there when her granddaughter walked out, pale but unbroken. I knew you'd fix it, Isabel whispered, collapsing into her arms. I didn't fix it, Rosa said softly. I just told the truth. The trial took a year. Marissa took a plea deal that still ended in life without parole. Daniel filed for divorce the day the indictment was announced. Healing didn't come quickly, but it came honestly. Years later, on a warm evening in Galveston, Rosa sat beside Isabel as officials stood at a podium announcing sweeping reforms, new safeguards, new oversight, new protections inspired by the case that nearly destroyed their family. Rosa listened, hands folded, heart full. She had lost peace, lost sleep, lost illusions. But she had saved what mattered. And as the Gulf breeze carried the sound of waves and distant applause, Rosa Alvarez knew, some fights are worth everything you have. Rosa thought the worst was behind them once Isabel came home, but life didn't snap back into place the way movies promised. Healing was slower, quieter, and far more human. Isabel moved back into Rosa's small Coral Gables house, sleeping for weeks on the pull-out sofa even though Rosa offered her the bedroom. Nightmares came first, airport lights, shouting voices, metal cuffs. Rosa would wake to the sound of shallow breathing and pad softly down the hallway, sitting beside her granddaughter until the panic passed. Daniel tried to apologize. He showed up one afternoon with flowers and a hollow look in his eyes, saying he never imagined Marissa could do something like that. Rosa listened, arms crossed, Lucia coloring silently at the kitchen table. You didn't imagine it, Rosa said calmly. You refused to see it. Daniel's mouth opened, then closed. He nodded once, shame burning through him. Rosa didn't shut the door on him, but she didn't open it wide either. Trust, she knew, had to be rebuilt like bone after a break. Jack visited often during the months leading up to the sentencing. His health wasn't great, but his mind stayed sharp. He helped Isabel understand what would happen next, walked her through depositions, sat beside her during hearings like a quiet anchor. You were brave, he told her once, after a long day in court. Isabel shook her head. I didn't feel brave. Bravery rarely feels like courage, Jack said. Mostly it feels like survival. When the sentence finally came down, life in federal prison without parole, there was no cheering, no satisfaction. Just a strange stillness. Marissa never looked at them as she was led away. Whatever she'd once been to their family was gone, replaced by someone Rosa barely recognized. That night, Rosa cooked a simple meal. Black beans. Rice. Plantains. They ate together, just the 3 generations left standing. What now? Isabel asked quietly. Rosa smiled, lines deepening around her eyes. Now you live. Isabel went back to nursing, but closer to home this time. She volunteered with clinics along the coast, helping communities still suffering from environmental damage caused by companies like the ones exposed in the case. Her name became known, not as a suspect, but as a symbol of how the system could be fought and fixed. Lucia grew older, steadier, surrounded by truth instead of secrets. And Rosa returned to her routines. Morning cafecito. Church on Sundays. Long walks where the ocean breeze reminded her that nothing stayed broken forever. Years later, standing at Miami International Airport again, Rosa watched Isabel head toward a new assignment, this time by choice, not force. They hugged long and tight. You saved me, Isabel whispered. Rosa shook her head gently. No, mi amor. I believed you. That's different. As Isabel disappeared through security, Rosa sat down, hands folded in her lap, heart full and aching all at once. She had learned something through it all, love wasn't just protection. Sometimes, love meant standing up, digging deep, and fighting the truth into the light, no matter how painful. And as Rosa rose to leave the terminal, the Florida sun pouring through the glass walls, she walked forward knowing one simple thing with certainty. Her family was finally free.